Hello, I'm Chris. This is Gross Models. Welcome to day 18 of 30 Days Lost in Space. Today, we have a new toy to play with. We have a Rotary encoder. This is what I initially thought was a variable resistor, but it's not. It clicks in each step that it takes, and you can keep turning it as much as you like. It basically sends a signal to tell it how much it's turned and in which direction it's turned. There are 5 pins on that. I think we're only going to be using 4 of them. There is a switch on it as well. You can click it down as a button, but we're not using that. That's the central pin is a switch. So we need to wire this up. Now, I've unplugged the power from that because the power also needs to go to that. So we're going to use the breadboard. I'm going to use the white as the positive and the black as the negative again on there. I'm going to do the same thing with this cable, which we're going to plug into here with the ground on there, and the next one is plus. So put that one on there and that one on there. And then we're going to use jumper cables to go from our breadboard rail back to the board, because we've only got the one 5-volt output from there. So we might as well make use of the breadboard while it's sitting there to do that. So that gives us that. I think there is a short somewhere, because that display just flashed on and then flashed off again. And that should be on all the time. There we go, that's better. Looks like that connection is not great. Let's try that again. That's okay, that's working. These ones are going to go onto the top 2 of these. Clock and DT. We'll figure out what they are in the video. But that's basically going to tell us a signal how much it's moved and in which direction it's moved. So they will just click on there, and they are going to pins 2 and 3. Clock, the orange one, is going to 2, 0, 1, 2, and 3 with the other cable there. Right, well, that's the wiring done. Obviously, this is not doing anything as yet, but we'll worry about that in a moment. Let's go over and watch the video to see what we're going to do today.
Ah, there you are, Explorer. Welcome to day 18 of our fantastic interstellar adventure. I hope you're well rested and ready to embark on today's journey. Great work on the last mission, Sherlock. You've got the brains, but now we're gonna need the brawn. Your keypad worked fine for real-time input into the Hero, but we'll need precise thrust control for our ascent rate to the surface without risking any, let's say, unplanned rapid disassembly. Or we could run straight into Rachel, and same thing, game over. Fortunately, the Hero Kit contains just the sensor we need for subtle or forceful control, a rotary encoder. All right, let's dive into today's hardware discussion. Our star of the day is the rotary encoder. But what exactly is it? In simple terms, a rotary encoder sends direction of rotation signals and the amount of turn. It can also send an on or off signal with a push. Pick it up and play with it. Every click you feel as you turn the encoder is counted, and the direction you're turning it is noted. These 2 pieces of information are sent to our board as a sequence of high and low signals. The rotary encoder is particularly useful for scrolling through menus, adjusting variables on the fly, and in our case, delicately controlling our ascent rate. Moving on. It's time for some nerdy distinctions. There are 2 types of encoders, absolute and relative. An absolute encoder has a unique value for every specific angular position of the knob. There's a maximum clockwise position and a maximum counterclockwise position. You know precisely where you are at all times. A relative encoder, on the other hand, like the one we're using today, can turn endlessly. It doesn't have an end, so to speak. It tells you how far and in which direction the knob has been turned from its starting position, but it doesn't give you a specific location. Our relative encoder has 20 distinct clicks for a complete 360-degree rotation. That means each click corresponds to an 18-degree rotation. That's our encoder's angular resolution. Now that we have a good understanding of our new component, let's talk about how we're going to hook it up to our control panel. We connect the 5V to the plus symbol, or VCC terminal, and ground to the GND terminal. CLK, or A, and DT, or B, are the clever bits. They help us figure out which way the knob is being turned. There's also an SW terminal. That's for the push switch built into the encoder. Push down on the knob, and it acts like a button. Neat, huh? But we won't be using that feature in our project today. I think it's time we move on to the code. Wouldn't you agree? Right, let's get a bit technical now. This rotating encoder gadget is all about timing. We want to know two things. One, the direction of rotation, and two, the rate of rotation. The direction of the rotation is rather straightforward. When the knob starts turning, one of our two signals, CLK or A and DT or B, will get excited and go high before the other. Which one goes first tells us the direction of rotation. Essentially, if our CLK signal gets all giddy and turns high before our DT signal, we know the rotary encoder is spinning clockwise, like the hands on a traditional clock. If, on the other hand, our DT signal jumps the gun and goes high before CLK, we know the rotary encoder is spinning counterclockwise. Isn't that just a slice of fried gold? The rate of rotation is a bit more complex. I think we'll save that juicy bit for later. For now, let's make sure we get that direction detection working perfectly. Right, so we know that the order in which our signals go high determines the direction of rotation. But how do we accurately and efficiently detect that? Enter our secret weapon, the interrupt. An interrupt is a rather brilliant feature in microcontrollers that says, "Hey, listen! Something important just happened. Stop what you're doing and pay attention to this right now." This allows us to interrupt the normal flow of our code to react to a specific event. In our case, when either CLK or DT goes from high to low or from low to high. Or, in simple words, when either CLK or DT change their state. Instead of continually asking, "Are we there yet?" to CLK or DT in a loop, which is very tiring, mind you, we set an interrupt on CLK and DT and then go about our business. As soon as one of them changes state, the interrupt fires and our code can react immediately to handle the event. Once the interrupt executes, the code will resume exactly where it left for the interrupt. It's like setting an alarm to wake you up at 7 a.m. instead of waking up every few minutes to check the time. It's efficient, isn't it? That's the magic of interrupts for you, Explorer. Right, today we've got two primary tasks to tackle in code. Task 1, we need to read the direction our rotary encoder is spinning, which we'll manage by using a counter of sorts. Consider it our trusty breadcrumb trail to keep track of where we've been. Task 2, we have to ensure our spacecraft doesn't leap like a giddy frog from altitude 0 to 100. Stick with caution. Sudden rises could rip holes in the hull from rocks. Rise too slow, and there might not be enough force to get unstuck from ocean mud. Constant rises could run you into Rachel, the giant whale-like creature hovering around the ship. We need to maintain a steady, controlled ascent, and that means putting safeguards in our code. These are specific stopping points at precise altitudes. We'll use our 7-segment display as our handy altitude meter and adjust our altitude with the rotary encoder. We're not competing in a high-speed race, so there's no rush. Remember the fable of the celestial tortoise and the comet hare? That's right, we're taking a page from the tortoise's book. Slow and steady wins the race. Adjust the altitude, check the display, and ensure the steady ascent of our craft. One step at a time, my dear intrepid explorer.
Okay, so that's everything wired up and we know exactly what we're doing, and we've run the code and it says nope. something is wrong. Now, having a look at the code, I understand what is wrong, because it does in fact tell us just about here. The controls will be locked unless the correct keys from day 17 are added here. Replace the 0 with the first key, the second key, and the third key. So we've got to put in the first one, which is 23, the second one, which is 353, and the third one, which was 1688. So the correct code should now be entered. So if I upload that sketch, we should get the nope should disappear, and we end up with our depth. Right, we'll have a look at the code first and see if we can figure out what that's doing, and then we'll go through after that and let's have a look. So we've got that setting the depth control pin 2 and 3 for the two inputs from that, or outputs from that rather. The depth gauge, the outputs onto that are 5 and 6, the same as it was. Right, we're using the display as the depth gauge. We'd call it step gauge. We've got depth gauge, click pin, and dia pin, setting up the inputs for that. Okay, we're setting the blink count. I've already been through this and made some changes, so I'm going to put things back to where it was. Blink count 3. We're setting up the done and nope graphics to display on there. The initial depth is 30. I'll put this back to where it was. I played around with it to see if I understood it all, and I did. So I'm happy. But yeah, let's have a look. Alert depth 1 at -40, alert depth 2 at -20, and surface depth at 0. So it starts off at -60, which is where it is. As we go up, we've got an alert at -40, another alert at -20, and a surface depth at 0. And the alerts will blink 3 times because of that code that was at the top there that said 3. So down here we're setting up and setting everything up. Depth gauge, brightness 7. Right, if keys are valid, which is the call to see if we put in the right numbers, which is at the bottom. But if they are valid, we're going to show the initial depth. Else, if they're not right, then it will show nope, which is what it did before. And it actually prints in the serial monitor invalid keys. I didn't notice that, but you know, there we go. I wasn't looking for that. Right, this is about the interruption. So this is the interruptions. We've got attach interrupt, digital pin to interrupt, depth control click pin, and the DT pin. And that's update encoder with change, the change to the interrupt. Okay, so that's just setting up when the interrupt happens, you know what to do with it. Loop. Right, if depth control get change, if the depth control value has changed since the last check. So yeah, the rotary encoder library always sets it to be 0 to begin with, so we can work from that. So if the current depth is the initial depth plus the change, be it plus a negative change or a positive change, either way, it's still changing it. We can't go deeper than the floor depth. So if the current depth is less than the initial depth, the current depth equals the initial depth. So we can't go deeper than -60. That's fair. I understand that. Depth gauge, show number decimal current depth. We only want decimals, so that's okay. Then we're waiting 50 thousandths. That's all that. Don't need to worry about that. Right. If the previous depth is less than alert depth 1 and the current depth is greater than alert depth 1, blink the current depth. So yeah, when we get to whatever the 1 was set to, which was -40, so the previous depth is less than -40 and the current depth was greater than or equal to -40. So if it's when it's going down to that, not when it goes up to that. When it goes down to that, blink it. And do the same at depth 2. And at the surface, do that as well. This is the blink count bit. So clear it, wait a bit, show done, and then wait a bit. Okay. And previous depth equals current depth to go round for a loop. Okay, yep. So this is the keys bit. This is keys are valid section. This is reading to see that 0 is in fact the right number. I've just done something to change that. Let's correct that. I didn't want to copy that and move that. It's using, if it doesn't equal that, plus it's all a code to give me the numbers so they're not in the clear. Obviously some deep math there to figure out what the keys are, which is fine. And this is the blink to blink the current depth. Set up the blink count to how many times it loops through there. Yep, that's all good. And the interrupt handler is the depth control service. So that's okay. So it's now running. So we've got it showing minus 60. If I turn it clockwise to go deeper, it doesn't work. But if I turn it anti-clockwise, it starts to go down. And when it gets to fit, I didn't upload the code since I changed it. Let's change that. Let's send the correct code to it so it works as intended originally. Right, so we're at minus 60. It doesn't go forward. It goes backwards, and it'll go past 50 because I've now changed that back to 40. It will go forward, down again, but it will stop at 60. So when we get to 40, or negative 40, it flashes, and then we'll continue down. If I do go past 40 again, it just keeps going past. It's only when it comes back down to it, or up to it, because it's negatives going up. But and it will do the same at 20. Yep. And then as we get to the surface, it will do the same thing again. And it will say done. Yep. Okay, that made sense to me. I understand how that all works. So yeah, I don't need to talk to the AI about anything. I understood it all. Nothing to be explained, nothing to, yeah, I understood it all. If you don't understand any of it, by all means, log into GPT. Yeah, log into Astrid. Ask her yourself. But for now, I'm going to call that a day and move on to the next day tomorrow. So thank you very much for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon.